A dog suddenly lifting its head, ears alert, growling softly at what appears to be empty space. A cat sitting perfectly still, eyes locked on something we cannot see. Many people have experienced moments like these, and almost instinctively, a question arises. What if animals can sense more than we do? For centuries, animals have lived beside us. They share our homes, our routines, our quiet nights, and yet they seem to exist within a different layer of perception, one shaped less by logic and more by instinct, sensitivity, and subtle awareness. Perhaps that is why this question feels so compelling. Do animals perceive something unseen? Across cultures and spiritual traditions, animals are often described as especially sensitive beings. They are seen as guardians, companions, sometimes even as messengers between the visible and the invisible. Ancient stories speak of animals reacting to places believed to be spiritually charged, refusing to enter certain rooms, becoming restless, unable to settle, not out of fear as humans understand it, but out of a deeper responsiveness to their surroundings. From a scientific perspective, much of this behavior can be explained. Animals hear frequencies beyond human range. They detect subtle vibrations, changes in air pressure, shifts in scent we would never notice. A house is never truly silent. Walls expand and contract. Pipes hum. Air moves. What feels like emptiness to us is a rich sensory landscape to them. And yet, there is always something left unexplained. Because animals do not only react to their environment, they react to us, to our emotional states, our tension, our unease. A dog that growls may not be guarding against an external threat, but responding to something unspoken within the room. A cat that avoids a particular space may not be seeing something supernatural, but sensing an atmosphere shaped by unresolved emotions. This may be where the deeper meaning of the question lies. Not in whether animals see demons or spirits, but in how acutely they sense what we overlook. Animals live entirely in the present moment. They do not rationalize away discomfort or suppress intuition. And in that present moment, much is revealed, often more than we are willing to acknowledge. In spiritual reflection, the unseen is not always portrayed as something threatening. It is simply what exists beyond our limited perception. Animals, unburdened by constant analysis or fear of meaning, may stand closer to that realm, not because they possess supernatural power, but because they remain open. Perhaps this is the comforting thought, that animals are not frightened by the unseen. They simply perceive it, accept it, and move within it naturally. They remind us that not everything unknown is dangerous. Some things are merely subtle, quiet, easily missed. So when a pet stares into the darkness, maybe it isn't witnessing something ominous. Maybe it is listening to a world that has never been silent at all. There are countless stories people share, quiet moments that surprise them, moments when their pets seemed to respond to something beyond the ordinary. One person recalls sitting in the living room late one night, the house otherwise still. Her cat, normally indifferent and aloof, suddenly froze mid-stretch. Its eyes were fixed toward the hallway. No sound, no movement, nothing she could see. The cat's pupils dilated. It began to growl softly, low, deliberate, almost like a conversation with the silence itself. She stood up, puzzled, and followed its gaze. And just as she stepped toward the hallway, the cat turned away as if satisfied, and returned to its nap. Another woman describes a similar moment with her dog while they were on a quiet evening walk. They reached a clearing in the woods where the air was still and the wind seemed absent. Without warning, her dog stopped walking. Its ears stood tall. The dog's entire body went rigid. Then it let out a deep, sustained bark, not in fear, but with urgent insistence, directed toward an open space where no person, no animal, nothing appeared to be. She said the sound echoed strangely, as though something in the quiet was listening too. A third account comes from someone who lived in an older house with long hallways and creaking floors. He would often hear thumps or strains in the walls that he assumed were just the house settling, but his dog never acted normally during these moments. Whenever those sounds occurred, late at night or in the early morning, his dog would sit at the threshold of the hallway, stare down its length, and emit a low, whining sound that he could feel in his chest. He described it not as fear, but as a kind of alertness, a sense of awareness that went beyond ordinary hearing. Another story comes from a woman who said that her elderly cat would sometimes walk into empty rooms and sit facing a corner, as though it expected something to appear. When she called the cat's name, the animal would turn slowly, gaze into the room, and blink very slowly, a kind of measured, thoughtful look, before ambling back to her side. It wasn't panic. It was calm, curious, and utterly composed. Some describe their pet's behavior in terms of instinct. A sudden refusal to enter a particular room, heads turning sharply toward an unseen presence, a pattern of pacing that doesn't match any visible cause. One person explained that her dog would growl not at shadows, but at the very threshold of her doorway, as though it sensed a shift in atmosphere the moment she crossed it. Another said that his parrot would begin to chatter and call out at times when no one else was awake, long before dawn. The bird chirped and talked to the empty air like it was responding to something unseen. When morning light finally filled the room, it would fall silent, as though the presence it was addressing had vanished with the darkness. These are not fantastical claims so much as personal testimonials, everyday people describing something unusual in ordinary settings. They are moments when animals behaved in ways their humans could not immediately explain. Some dismiss them as coincidence. Others see in them a kind of sensitivity animals seem to possess, an attunement that human senses do not always reach. What these stories share is not proof of something supernatural, but a reminder. Animals live in a world rich with sensory detail. They attend to vibrations, subtle scents, tonal shifts, and quiet fluctuations in the environment that we simply do not register. And sometimes, in the hush of evening or the stillness of night, their reactions offer us a chance to reconsider what we think we know about perception and what might be happening in the quiet spaces we overlook.